Well, hello, friends. Welcome to Late Nights with Lady Mack. Getting sticky and getting unstuck. I kind of like the way that flows. I guess I'll have to work on reminding myself to actually introduce what we're doing here, because this is all new for me. What you're about to listen to is a 0.5 podcast. I'm jumping into this so that I can share this journey that I'm on, this very vulnerable new path, entrepreneur, midlife crisis, sabbatical, help, I'm lost, I don't know what I'm doing anymore. I'm jumping in and sharing this so openly and so vulnerably. And my assumption is that at least for the first while, until we've got some more excitement and I have guests and I have better quality mic and I know what I'm doing, my assumption is that about 10 of you are going to listen to my podcast. And my assumption on top of that is that most of you know who I am, at least on a surface level. I'm the homeless author, I wrote some books, I dabbled into some sexual education, I just kind of wung the last 8 years of my life as an entrepreneur. Now I am feeling tremendous burnout, and I don't know what's next. My last podcast, I talked a lot about pivoting. I talked about pivoting so much. I said the word pivot so many times. I am pretty sure most of you stopped listening 3 minutes in. But there was something to that. And today I'd like to take a step back because one day I would love to see something happen with this. I don't know what that means. But when it does, maybe there will be more than 10 of you who would like to know why I feel like I have so much to share, why I feel like this journey is worth sharing, and what I already have been through and grown through that may be a tremendous help to somebody. I wanted to share, completely unscripted and on a whim, who I am and what I'm about and what is in my core that leads me to do this. I have always wanted to be a writer. I wanted to be a writer my entire life. I grew up in the middle of nowhere in a little hick town, and while I had people that supported me and supported my big dreams, like a lot of people that don't know somebody, it felt like you had to know somebody to know somebody. How do you, in the 90s especially, you got to remember, we're not talking about right now, how do you in the 90s or early 2000s become a best-selling author or even a writer, an author, if you do not know somebody, if you are not already Stephen King, if you aren't already a name for yourself, or live somewhere where you have even the hintest of a connection to be able to contact some of these people that may know someone. And I'm not saying it's impossible, but that was the mindset that I kind of grew up in a small little nowhere town in Northern Ontario. So I made some big pivots from those dreams growing up. But a lot of them revolved around the same thing. I thought about working for a newspaper. I thought about being a journalist. I thought about getting into freelance writing. But my life took a lot of pivots and didn't take me down that path. In fact, by 2017, my life was in a very, very different place than young me had dreamed. I loved what I was doing. I loved where I was. I loved my partner. I loved being a mom. And then, in one of those freak Tuesday afternoon, life-changing moments, the trajectory of my entire life changed. By spring of 2017, I had fled what had become a violent and domestic relationship. I took 4 children, 1 in my temporary care, and we were homeless. I lost everything, except for some laundry baskets of clothes and a few boxes of odds and ends I had managed to save over a slow course of time of removing and packing things up as they would not be noticed. I was $20,000 in debt, and I finally thought it was time to make a pivot for me, and I wrote my first book. It brought me so much joy. Writing for me in a way that people read it and liked it, that was soul changing for me. But I was coming out of a really broken place. And I had so much on my plate. To build a new business, to write new books, to go to therapy, to heal my children, to get out of debt, to find somewhere to live, to fix my vehicle, to put myself back together, find 5 minutes for myself, to take a shower. Life became a constant struggle, even in the good times. Life became a constant balance of pivoting, even when I didn't want to. I could have chose a different path when I left the shelter. Realistically, in hindsight, a 9-to-5 might have helped my life improve a lot differently. But I'm not here to talk about what ifs, and I have no regrets. I'm simply saying I chose a difficult path. That pivot was a hard one. There was a lot of pivots that were hard. And so the next 8 years until right now in 2025 have been non-stop pivots. Some have been amazing. Some have been life-changing in a good way. Some have taught me so much. Stability is something I definitely need, and I am the wrong person to advocate for entrepreneurship and stability and life stability. But honestly, do any of us really get stability? Do any of us ever really know what's coming? There are many times in my life I did not want to pivot and I thought life was stable, and it was not. There are many paths I pivoted to that I expected more security from, and that fell apart. Sharing this journey that I am embarking on will be filled with some big pivots, will be filled with some big challenges, will be filled with some big learning experiences. And I want to share that. I want to share that with you. I want to bring you along for this journey. I want to share other people's journeys. I want to see how we are all going to get out of this together, because I know I'm not the only one burnt out and stuck. And I know that my story isn't the same as everyone's. Hopefully, most of you were not escaping a domestic and homeless and in debt and have been struggling ever since. And every time you get ahead 2 steps, you go 1 step back. And while that means you're making progress, it definitely means you are still way behind. Your story probably still resonates with a lot of that. My story still probably resonates with a lot of that. I didn't just wake up last week and decide, I don't like my life anymore. And it's perfectly okay though if you did. It is perfectly okay if everything has been amazing and then an hour ago you decided you were burnt out and done. What I'm sharing is that I have been down this road a lot. I have already pivoted. I have already learned. I have already twisted. I have already plot twisted, changed so many times. I know I'm ready for this one, and I'm ready to take this one publicly. I'm ready to take you along my journey. I'm ready for the whole 10 of you that are watching this to find me reestablish myself, my stability, my security. And I don't mean through podcasting. That's not what I mean to say by I'm launching a podcast and sharing this journey with you. I want to share what I'm doing in my life. I want to share the hard conversations I'm having. I want to share these hard decisions and these new pivots and these new ways I will be exploring my life. I want to share how other people are getting unstuck. I want to share how they're discovering what's stuck, what's sticky, what's messy and needs to go. That's what's exciting for me. That's what brings me passion. That's what's bringing me joy. I used to go live on Facebook and on some other platforms years ago, before I was really Lady Mack. And we would talk about sex ed, and I would bring people on and I would take questions. And sometimes we would just sit and talk because, man, I can talk. That's where I see this going, as somewhere where we can sit and talk and have these honest conversations. And I'm sharing all this so that you know that this is not new to me. Yes, podcasting is new to me. Yes, I'm doing all of this ass backwards and wrong. But being on camera, talking to people, creating content, exploring, sharing my passion, being vulnerable, something I haven't done in a long time and something I really miss. Now, I don't know if this podcast made any sense. That's why I'm not really going to advertise this one and stick it in as a 0.5. Stick it in as a who I am in case you don't know me. I don't know if I shared enough so that you do know me. This is what I get for not scripting. And not to say I script my podcasts, but I have topics and I have an outline. And this time I just turned the camera on. I just turned the camera on and said, maybe I should tell you that I have been a struggling, single, broke mom. I have restarted multiple businesses. I have gone to school so many times. I have had to give things up. I've had to leave things behind. I've had to make tremendous sacrifices. And so many of those things got me nowhere. But I learned so much. I have so much to share. And I know that wherever this next chapter of my life is going, it's not just going to help me. Whatever I take from this and I share, there's at least one person I know that is like, thank you, because I'm burnt out too. And I don't know how to tell people that. And I don't know how to be vulnerable. And I don't know what the next steps are. You know, we all don't need to quit our jobs and move away to another country and dye our hair and change our name, but something has to give. Something is stuck and it needs to be unstuck. And I want to unstuck myself with you. And maybe by the time I circle around to reading erotica, my first one will be something about people being in a big sticky mess, and we'll have this whole thing come full circle. So thank you for listening to my rambles. Again, this isn't really a podcast in a sense. I mean, maybe it is. Maybe somebody is on the edge of their seat, absolutely riveted right now. But honestly, I just kind of wanted to talk about where it came from. It was a really scary moment in my life when I realized my option was to Google the women's shelter and pick up the phone and say, I don't know where to go. I had no choice. I had temporary custody of a child who wasn't mine because her parents couldn't take her. So bouncing around from couch to couch and floor surfing wasn't an option. I had kids that were scared. They needed stability. And over the last 8 years, while I've given my kids stability and I've put a roof over our heads and they have a great life, my inner core is still shook. My inner core wants to find out what it wants and to hold on with both fucking hands until I squeeze the ever-loving drop of all last love from it and make it mine. Does that make sense? I don't know. But whatever it is, I'm going to find it. And I'm going to take you with me. And we're going to do this together. I feel like I should add that anybody who is struggling or is in a bad place, it gets better. There's help. It may not seem like it. Googling the homeless shelter probably doesn't seem like a great option, but if that's your option, please take it. Get out and get help. On the other side of that, things can get a lot better. I know I've shared that I have been struggling over the last 8 years, but those 8 years have been filled with a tremendous amount of freedom, love, peace, grace, belief, the ability to do this, the ability to chase these dreams, the ability to share my story. That's a big one. Thanks for being here, guys. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being a part of this. And if there's a part of you that this resonates with and you want to share and you want to talk, please reach out. I'd love to hear from you. Author Carissa McIntyre, ladymackxo. And thank you for joining me for this little tiny mid-episode of Late Nights with Lady Mack. Now you know a little bit of my sticky, or a little bit more, and you can see why it's so important for me to become unstuck